Okay, so this is the second part of my video on building one of the rear wheels. If you haven't seen the first part, I'll put a link in the description and you can click on the video now. Okay, so in the last video we cleaned everything up and started putting the spokes in the rim. So as you can see here, I've put all the first layer of spokes into the rim. And someone asked me why they were mounted on the inside, but that's basically just for looks. So I think Borals thought it looked tidier on the inside, but you'll probably find some engines have got them on the inside, some have got them on the outside, and then some alternate, so it doesn't really matter too much. So now I am mounting the hub to the spokes. So we just mount it loosely at first. Gives everything sort of movement so that you can fit everything together, and then we tighten it all up once everything's in. Now I found that on the rear layer of spokes, the fillet that we put in to make it look a bit prettier actually interferes with the back of the spokes, so here I'm just grinding the back edge off so that it doesn't interfere with the fillet. So there we go, that's all the spokes in. So I've just got to put the screws into the hub for the second layer. As you can see, it's still all loose, so it moves around fairly easily so the screws can go in. There's quite a lot of parts to build in one of these wheels, and I found it quite difficult to condense it all down into a video, so I hope it shows everything. So now we've got everything in, we can fully tighten it up. So the first step in fully tightening everything up is to take each spoke out one by one, and we fill up the sort of seat in the hub with Araldite or any kind of epoxy resin. So it takes quite a long time because we've obviously got to knock out all the rivets and all the bolts that we've put in temporarily and go around one by one. There's one out. Mix up a bit of epoxy. And then we put it back in again. Now the idea here is to get the epoxy so it squidges out all of the gaps, and that means that when it's hardened off we can trim those flush, and then it gives the appearance of the hub being cast as one piece as it would have been on full size. I found it quite difficult to strike a balance between nothing squidging out and absolutely loads squidging out and dripping everywhere and making a huge mess. So now that spoke's in, we fit the centre two rivets back in permanently now. So we've got the two outer bolts that are tightened fully and they're holding it in place, and then that means we can put in the softer rivet bolts and tighten those up without putting too much stress on the nuts. So now this is the fitting of the hub covers, so what we've got to do here is put a load more epoxy in to fill all the gaps between the spokes and the hub and between the spokes and the hub cover. And again, the idea is to put enough in so it all squeezes out and then we can trim it flush afterwards. I was also putting a bit on the threads for the hub cover as well. I can't imagine why you'd have to take it off again, but it certainly wouldn't be easy if it ever came to that. There we go, that's the back hub cover done. So now, as I said, we've got the outer two bolts holding the spoke tightly against the rim, and the two bolts in the centre are the rivet bolts. So we've just got to put a rivet nut on each one before releasing the outer two bolts. And this means that we don't put too much stress on the tiny nuts there. And I'm just putting a bit of Loctite on the threads as well. And we've just got to work around the whole rim doing this now. So first the centre two, then the outer two bolts come out one at a time, and we replace those one by one. So that's all the rivet bolts done. You can see it looks a bit nicer now. Now I'm just filling the screw holes on the back of the hub. And then the next job is to round over the back of the rivet bolts so it looks similar to as it does on the front. Now it's pretty hard to get it perfect, but you can certainly round it over quite a bit, and then with a few coats of paint on you'll hardly know the difference. So there we go, not too bad. It's just the sort of hexagonal shape that gives it away, but again with the paint on that'll lessen that effect. I've cleaned off all the extra resin that was coming out of the hubs, but unfortunately it took its toll on my craft knives. Oops. So there we go, after all that I've now got two rear wheels to paint. If there's anything you want to know, just leave a question in the comments. Other than that, thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.